And now we can jump into football at 4. There's I'm going to make a comparison here that fans are going to hate because these two teams don't usually like to be compared. But Salty Dave for Dave Doran has become kind of a moniker, right? Should Mack Brown get the salty title also? Mack Brown, head coach UNC, showed a little bit of bite at ACC Media Days, at the ACC kickoffs, right? The image I always think of Mack Brown is like ultra suave, right? Charming, very, very disarming, right? When he talks with you, you feel like you're old friends. Has to be unbelievable in the living room recruiting young athletes and their parents and families. Just that's what I think of. But maybe he isn't just that, the nice and gentle old coach. Mack Brown, and we have some audio here from the Tar Heel Tribune, decided to kind of take aim all of the coaches that have used his age against him in recruiting, specifically calling out Mike Elko, who at one point in time said that he would be at Duke longer than Mack Brown would be at UNC. Here's Mack Brown, Tar Heel Tribune.
Every recruit that comes in, the first thing he wants to know is, are you going to quit? Because every coach recruiting against us says, I'm going to quit. And 6 of them have been fired that said that already. So they ought to be worried more about themselves. And then Coach Elko said, I'll be at Duke longer than Mack will be at Carolina. And, well, I called him when he went out to A&M and said, okay, you lied. He said, well, I didn't think I was going to. I said, yeah, I got it. I hear all that. And then the second thing they ask is, how much NIL money do I get? So that's my new recruiting visits when I have. But I'm lucky. I'm healthy. I've got lots of energy. I'm having so much fun. And how many people get to change kids' lives every day of their life?
What a wholesome end to just a mashing in the face of a comment. He called up Mike Elko and said, you lied. And then he ended it with, how many people get to change kids' lives every day? It's Mack Brown. He keeps a list. Oh, you think these kids should worry about if I'm going to leave UNC? 6 of you have already been fired.
I mean, you thought Dave Doran had some receipts. Mack Brown, I was unfamiliar with your game.
Mack Brown, little salty, little petty. I don't hate it, by the way.
I mean, yeah, he's absolutely right. If you're a Duke fan, wouldn't you want to call it Mike Elko the same and tell him the same thing?
And we shouldn't be surprised. You don't get as successful. You don't achieve as much as he's achieved in college sports without being wildly competitive, without being a little bit grudge holding. But I thought this next one was maybe his best use of his charm to be a little firm, right? He uses his disarming nature to be a little bit of a salty, right? To be a little bit like, we're not going to get pushed around. Mack Brown, we interviewed him on this show at ACC Kickoff, and we had a really cool moment where we went Connor Harrell straight to Mack Brown, straight to Omarion Hampton, right? So potential starting quarterback straight to the head coach, to one of the ACC Player of the Year candidates in their running back. Like literally they were passing the headphones, sitting right down. We did no commercials. So when Mack Brown's conversation was coming to an end, I said, hey, Omarion Hampton's next. What question should I ask him? Here's that interaction, and I'm going to break down how Mack Brown was kind of Jedi mind tricking us to notice something that maybe we weren't pointed at. So here's Mack Brown at ACC Kickoff with myself. We're talking with Omarion right after you stand up here. Is there's some kind of insight, a good question you can give me that'll get a good answer out of Omarion?
Yes, he's very quiet. He's very shy. Ask him how he's enjoyed talking to the media today. Because I think he's really pumped about this. He had so many people tampering with him and recruiting him to leave. I think a great question is you obviously had a lot of places that wanted you to go. Why'd you stay?
All right.
Because I've heard that answer, and it's really a cool answer at a time where so many people are just taking money and leaving and not doing what might be best for their future.
What a Jedi mind trick of an answer.
It's one of those things, since I was back here producing, when I heard it live, it just went right over my head. And then as I go back and listen to it, because we replayed that conversation on Next Up on Friday morning, and I heard that the second time I went, tampering. I was like, did he even put his name out in the transfer portal to begin with at the end of the season?
Ask about all those teams that wanted him and all of the tampering that happened. I'm paraphrasing. When Omarion Hampton never went into the transfer portal.
Exactly. So it makes me think to myself, who was the NIL donor that was saving all the cash that they were going to try to offer Drake Money, who went on to make money in the NFL this year, is going to make money. And then once he realized, all right, I can't compete with the New England Patriots, he was like, let me just slide that all over to Omarion Hampton.
But here's the thing that I think Mack Brown was trying to point out. Obviously, Omarion Hampton, and I did ask him, I said, hey, Armando Bacot, $2 million, that's what he said he made. Are they taking care of the football players? And he said yes. And he had a nice he had a chain with the pendant with his jersey number. Like, I think Omarion Hampton's doing all right in NIL. But Mack Brown saying, talk about the tampering, talk about all the teams that wanted him. It is not legal. It is not within the NCAA laws for Omarion Hampton to even know if other teams want him. He probably thinks it because he might be the best running back in the league, but no one's allowed to talk to him. No other teams are allowed to talk to him. That's Mack Brown not having to answer a question. He didn't have to bring it up. He told us because of the way I asked it, and he saw the opportunity to get us thinking about all of the options Omarion Hampton had. And then framed it as have him say why he came back to North Carolina.
I mean, he does have that experience in the media after all.
I mean, and you can tell. That's a heck of a maneuver. That is a heck of a maneuver to get across a point that is one that probably frustrates the heck out of coaches, right? You have players on your team that don't want to leave, that have not expressed any interest in leaving, that are fully committed to come back, and yet still you have to deal with offers and conversations and back channels about your players leaving. It's pretty good. Pretty good way to communicate that without having to do like the blunt force trauma, right? He didn't have to just come out and say, hey, you tell all of these coaches. Like, he didn't have to do that. He just did it a little Southern charm way. Hey, tell Omarion to tell you about all those opportunities he turned down. That's his way of telling us there were opportunities communicated to Omarion. By the way, Omarion Hampton did answer the question by saying, Coach Brown and everybody at UNC has been loyal to me, so now it's my turn to be loyal back to them. Sign of a pretty well-run program. Right, we've seen a lot of players bounce out of programs for the cash and for the opportunities, especially when quarterbacks graduate or go pro, and maybe this year doesn't look as sizzle-worthy as last year. He's still committed and showing his loyalty.
And again, I appreciate that Mack Brown, as the Hall of Fame coach that he is, whether people want to remember that or not, he chose to not retire after last year. He could have easily said, Drake May, I've had Sam Howell, I've had Drake May during my time back at North Carolina. You know, this was a farewell tour for me. And a lot of people thought that was going to be a reality when he was emotional after that Duke win on senior night. But no, he's choosing to take it one more season in a controversial way when he has two quarterbacks that he's going to let duel out to be the starter week one.
Yeah, I've talked about this, and who knows if Mack Brown is going to retire this offseason or not. Him and his family are probably the only ones that know even how much he's considering it. But I do think there's two honorable ways to make the transition. One, we saw Bob Stoops do it at Oklahoma, where Baker Mayfield was coming back for one more year, and Bob Stoops retired before Baker's senior year, which allowed Lincoln Riley, the coach in waiting, to have his first year with a Heisman-level quarterback.
Right.
The other option is, if you want to be there until the Heisman-level quarterback graduates or goes pro, you stick around for another year or two so the expectations come down a little bit. That way, whoever the next coach isn't trying to match winning and success totals from a year where you had a generational quarterback without a generational quarterback. So I don't think Mack was going to leave this past year. The future, only time will tell.